Patience silently offered a prayer of thanks as her feet touched firm ground. She had never fully gained her sea legs despite her best efforts, nor her sea stomach if such a thing existed. Her gown fit looser than usual around her already petite frame, evidence of her inability to maintain much of an appetite aboard the ship. But those days were behind her now. She was standing, for the first time, on the shores of America. The Eleanor sat moored in the wharf, next to another ship that had anchored there before they arrived. She glanced over her shoulder at Captain Bruce, who had disembarked with them and was now engaged in intense conversation with a group of men who appeared to be standing guard on the dock. His furrowed brow suggested trouble. Will grasped her elbow and led her away from the crowd. "Wait here. I'll see to our trunks." Patience watched his retreating form, then turned to better observe the gathered men. They didn't look like soldiers, their clothing the same as any common man might wear, yet they stood with a bearing like the military men she'd seen from time to time growing up in England, the way she remembered father looking when he'd sailed for the British Navy. One of the men gestured to their ship, his expression resolute as he spoke words she was too far away to hear. She edged closer. "You can unload the other cargo, but the tea stays on board." She barely caught the statement of the stern-faced man addressing Captain Bruce. "We've spoken with John Rowe, and you will hear the same from him." "I want no trouble," the captain replied. "Only ensure my men and my ship are unharmed." What did they mean? Refusing to unload the shipment of tea? What trouble could that cause? A vague memory flitted at the corner of her mind. Hadn't Will spoken of conflict regarding the tea tax? If only she could better remember what he had said. But her thoughts had been occupied by other, more pressing cares, like their mother's illness and their father's absence. Patience spotted Will's tall form pushing through the crowd, her trunk in his arms, and she scurried back to the place he'd left her. She clapped a hand over her bonnet as the wind whipping off the sea threatened to pull it loose. He placed the trunk on the ground beside her with a low grunt. "What did you fill this with? I cannot imagine petticoats weigh so much." Patience laughed and swatted his arm. He flashed a rare grin, warming her even as the chilly air nipped at her cheeks. As Will hurried to retrieve his trunk, Patience turned away from the sea to scan her new surroundings. There was so much to take in. It was nearly overwhelming. The lapping of waves behind her, a now familiar sound after their weeks on the Atlantic, blended with the squawks of seabirds circling above. The scent of salt hung heavy in the air, tinged with fish and an earthiness she hadn't smelled for nearly 2 months. She breathed it in, a strangely welcome odor after being away from land so long.